Michael Harper stood at the back of the crowd during his grandfather's funeral. Rain fell softly around them, but Michael barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere. At 27, he had not expected to lose his grandfather so soon. Harold Harper had been healthy and strong until just 2 weeks ago, when he died suddenly in his sleep. The funeral ended, and people started to leave. Many came to Michael to offer kind words, but he just nodded and tried to smile. His cousin Sarah touched his arm. "Are you coming to the house for food?" she asked. "I'll be there soon," Michael said. "I want a moment alone." After everyone left, Michael walked closer to the fresh grave. His grandfather had been his best friend and guide. Now he was gone, and Michael felt lost. As he turned to leave, the cemetery caretaker approached him. The old man held out a small brown envelope. "Your grandfather asked me to give you this 1 month after his burial," the caretaker said. "But seeing you so sad, I think you should have it now." Michael took the envelope with shaking hands. "What is it?" "I don't know. He made me promise to give it only to you." Michael thanked the man and walked to his car. Inside, he stared at the envelope for several minutes before opening it. The paper inside was old and yellow. His grandfather's handwriting filled the page. Asterisk, dear Michael, asterisk. Asterisk, if you are reading this, I am gone. Do not mourn me too much. I have lived a good life, but there are things you must know about our family. Things I could never tell you while I was alive, asterisk. Asterisk, 1 month after my burial, you must come to my grave at midnight. Come alone, bring a shovel. What you find will shock you, but it is your right to know the truth about who we are, asterisk. Asterisk, do not tell anyone about this letter. Do not talk about what you discover. The safety of our family depends on your silence, asterisk. Asterisk, I am sorry to place this burden on you, but you are the only one I can trust, asterisk. Asterisk, your loving grandfather, asterisk. Asterisk, Harold, asterisk. Michael read the letter 3 times. His heart raced. This couldn't be real. His grandfather wanted him to dig up his grave. That was illegal. It was wrong. But his grandfather had never asked him to do anything without a good reason. For the next 4 weeks, Michael barely slept. He went to work at the local hardware store, came home, and stared at the letter each night. What could be so important? What secret had his grandfather kept? The night before the 1 month mark, Michael made his decision. He would go. He had to know. The next evening, he waited until dark, then drove to the cemetery with a shovel in his trunk. The gates were locked, but he knew a place in the fence that was broken. His grandfather had shown him years ago when they came to visit his grandmother's grave after hours. The cemetery was different at night. The shadows from the gravestones stretched across the ground like dark fingers. An owl called from a nearby tree. Michael walked slowly, using only the light of the moon to find his way to his grandfather's grave. When he reached the right spot, he stood for a long time, just looking at the headstone. Harold James Harper, beloved father and grandfather, 1950 to 2023. "I hope you know what you're doing, Grandpa," Michael whispered as he pushed the shovel into the soft earth and began to dig. He had no idea that what waited below would change everything he thought he knew about himself and his family. The soil was harder than Michael expected. His muscles burned as he dug deeper into his grandfather's grave. Sweat ran down his face despite the cool night air. Every few minutes, he would stop and look around, afraid someone might see him. "This is crazy," he mumbled to himself. "I'm digging up my grandfather's grave because of a letter. I could go to jail for this." But something inside pushed him to continue. His grandfather had always been a serious man who rarely joked. If he had asked Michael to do this, there must be an important reason. After 2 hours of digging, Michael's shovel hit something hard. It wasn't the wooden coffin he expected. This sound was different, metal against metal. Michael dropped to his knees and used his hands to brush away the remaining dirt. What he found made no sense. Instead of a coffin, there was a flat metal door about 3 feet wide. It was made of some kind of strange metal that didn't look rusty despite being in the ground. Around the edges of the door were small symbols that Michael had never seen before. "What is this?" he whispered. His heart pounded in his chest. Where is Grandpa's coffin? In the center of the door was a small keyhole. Michael suddenly remembered the second thing in his grandfather's envelope, a small key he had thought was for a diary or a box. With shaking hands, he pulled it from his pocket. The key fit perfectly. When Michael turned it, he heard a series of clicks, like gears moving inside the door. then silence. He grabbed the metal handle on the door and pulled. It was heavy, but it opened smoothly, as if it had been used recently. Cold air rushed out from below, carrying a smell like old books and something else Michael couldn't name. Michael pointed his flashlight into the opening. Instead of seeing his grandfather's body, he saw stone steps leading down into darkness. They looked very old, but were in perfect condition. On the wall beside the steps were more of the strange symbols he had seen on the door. "This is impossible," Michael said. "How long has this been here? Did Grandpa build this?" He thought about closing the door and running away. This was too strange, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. His grandfather had wanted him to find this place. Taking a deep breath, Michael put one foot on the first step. It felt solid. He began to descend slowly, keeping one hand on the wall for balance. The steps went down for what seemed like a very long time, at least 30 feet underground. Finally, Michael reached the bottom. His flashlight revealed a small room with walls made of the same strange metal as the door. The room was empty except for a wooden table in the center. On the table was an old leather book and a photograph in a silver frame. Michael walked closer. The photograph showed his grandfather as a young man, standing next to another man who looked familiar. After a moment, Michael realized the other man looked exactly like someone he had seen in his history books. But that wasn't possible. That person had lived over 100 years ago. Next to the photograph was a note in his grandfather's handwriting. "Asterisk, Michael, if you've come this far, you're ready to learn the truth. Our family isn't what you think. We aren't who you think. Open the book and begin reading. But be warned, once you know the truth, you can never go back to your old life. Asterisk." Michael's hand hovered over the book. "Do you really want to know? What secret was so big that his grandfather had created this underground room to hide it?" Slowly, he reached for the book and opened it to the first page. The book was heavier than it looked. As Michael opened it, the leather cover creaked like it was speaking to him. The first page had only one sentence written in his grandfather's neat handwriting. "The Harper family secret begins in 1847. Michael turned the page and began to read. The words pulled him in right away. Asterisk, in 1847, William Harper, your great-great-great-grandfather, was a simple farmer in England. One night, he saw something fall from the sky into his field. What he found changed our family forever. Asterisk." The book contained drawings of a small metal object shaped like an egg. According to the book, William had touched it, and it had opened, releasing a strange light that went into his body. After that night, William could do things no normal person could do. He knew things about the future. He could feel what others were feeling, and he stopped getting older. Michael stopped reading and looked at the photograph again. The man standing next to his grandfather, could it be William Harper? But that would make him over 170 years old when the photo was taken. "This can't be real," Michael whispered, but as he said it, he remembered strange things about his grandfather. Harold Harper never seemed to get sick. He could always tell when Michael was upset, even when Michael tried to hide it. And there were those times when his grandfather had known things would happen before they did. Like the time he told Michael not to go to school the day the old gym roof collapsed. Michael returned to the book and kept reading. William had moved to America to hide his strange abilities. He had children who also showed some of these powers. The Harper family had kept their secret for generations, always hiding, always careful. Then Michael found a section about himself. Asterisk, Michael shows the strongest connection to the original gift since William. We have watched him closely. He has dreams that show real events. He can sense emotions more clearly than anyone in our family for 5 generations. But he doesn't know what he can do yet. Asterisk. What? Michael said out loud. He did have strange dreams sometimes that seemed to come true, and he had always been good at knowing how people felt, but he had thought everyone could do these things. The next page showed diagrams of the human body with strange patterns drawn over it. Notes in the margins explained that the gift changed human DNA, making the Harpers slightly different from other people. As Michael turned to the next page, he felt the air in the room change. It became cooler, and he had the feeling he wasn't alone anymore. He spun around, pointing his flashlight toward the stairs. No one was there. But when he turned back to the table, something had changed. A door had appeared in the wall opposite the stairs. A door that hadn't been there before. This door was different from the one above. It was made of what looked like dark wood with a brass handle. Around the frame were more of the strange symbols, These were glowing with a faint blue light. Michael looked back at the book. The next page seemed to be written in a hurry. Asterisk, if the second door appears to you, you have been accepted. This is rare. Only 3 Harpers have ever seen it. Behind this door is the source of our family's gift. Be careful. What you see may terrify you at first, but remember, it chose our family for a reason. Asterisk. Michael closed the book and stood up. The door seemed to be waiting for him. Did he dare open it? What would he find on the other side? His grandfather had trusted him with this secret. He had to be brave. Michael walked slowly to the door and placed his hand on the handle. It felt warm, almost alive. He took a deep breath and turned it. The door opened smoothly, without a sound. Michael expected to see another room, maybe larger than the first one. What he saw instead made him step back in shock. There was no room beyond the door. Instead, he was looking at what seemed like outer space. Stars shined in complete darkness. But this wasn't like any night sky Michael had ever seen. The stars were arranged in patterns he didn't recognize, and some of them pulsed with different colors. "This isn't possible," Michael whispered. As he stared, the space beyond the door began to change. The stars moved, forming a path that stretched forward into the darkness. The path was made of light, solid enough to walk on, but glowing blue-white like starlight. Michael looked back at his grandfather's book on the table. The last line he had read came back to him. "What you see may terrify you at first, but remember, it chose our family for a reason." Taking a deep breath, Michael stepped through the door onto the path of light. It felt solid under his feet, though it looked like it was made of nothing but light. The air around him was neither hot nor cold, and he could breathe normally despite what looked like the vacuum of space all around him. The door closed behind him with a soft click. When Michael turned to look at it, he saw that it was standing alone in space, with no wall around it, just a door, floating among the stars. He turned back to the path and started walking. With each step, the stars around him seemed to get brighter. After walking for what felt like minutes, he reached what appeared to be the end of the path. Before him floated a sphere of swirling light, about the size of a basketball. It pulsed with colors Michael had never seen before, colors that shouldn't exist. Looking at it made his eyes hurt, but he couldn't look away. The sphere moved closer to him. Michael wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go except back the way he had come. As the sphere got closer, he heard a voice in his mind. Asterisk, Michael Harper, at last. Asterisk. The voice wasn't male or female. It didn't sound human at all, yet Michael understood it perfectly. "Who are you?" Michael asked, his voice shaking. "What are you?" Asterisk, "I have been with your family for generations. I am what you might call a guardian. I come from a place beyond your understanding." Asterisk. "The thing that fell in William Harper's field in 1847? Asterisk, "Yes, I chose your ancestor because I saw in him qualities that would be needed. Now those same qualities grow strong in you." Asterisk. Michael tried to make sense of what was happening. "So you're some kind of alien?" The sphere pulsed brighter for a moment. Asterisk, "Your words are too simple for what I am, but yes, I come from elsewhere. I am one of many who watch over worlds like yours." Asterisk. "Watch over? Why?" Asterisk, "There are threats you cannot imagine. Things that move between worlds, feeding on life and energy. Your world has been targeted. We Guardians chose families on many worlds to help us protect life." Asterisk. Michael felt dizzy. This was too much to take in. So my grandfather was fighting these threats? Asterisk, "Yes, Harold was a strong protector. He eliminated 17 incursions during his time. Now he has passed the responsibility to you." Asterisk. "But I don't know how to fight anything. I work at a hardware store." The sphere moved even closer. Michael could feel energy coming from it now, making the hair on his arms stand up. Asterisk, "The knowledge is in your blood. I will help you remember." Asterisk. Before Michael could react, a beam of light shot out from the sphere and touched his forehead. Pain exploded in his head. Images flashed in his mind. Strange creatures with too many limbs, shadows that moved on their own, people with black eyes that weren't people at all. Then he saw his grandfather fighting these things. Harold Harper used abilities Michael had never seen, moving objects with his mind, creating shields of energy, sensing the creatures hiding in human form. As suddenly as it started, the pain stopped. Michael fell to his knees, gasping. Asterisk, "Now you understand what must be done. Asterisk, the voice said. Asterisk, return to your world. Your training begins tomorrow. They know a new Harper has been chosen. They will come for you soon, Asterisk. Wait, Michael called out. I don't understand everything yet. But the sphere was already moving away. The path of light began to fade. Asterisk, return through the door, Michael Harper. Your grandfather left you everything you need to begin, Asterisk. As the sphere disappeared among the distant stars, Michael turned and ran back to the floating door. Michael burst through the door and stumbled into the small underground room. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. The door closed behind him and disappeared into the wall as if it had never been there. He stood still for several minutes, trying to catch his breath. Had all of that really happened, or was he losing his mind? He touched his forehead where the beam of light had hit him. The skin felt normal, but inside his head, something was different. His thoughts seemed clearer, and he could remember things he had never learned. Focus, he whispered to himself. Grandpa left me something to help me begin. Michael turned back to the table. The book was still there, but now he noticed a wooden box underneath it that he hadn't seen before. It was about the size of a shoebox, made of dark wood with the now familiar symbols carved into the sides. He lifted the book and picked up the box. It felt heavy in his hands. On the top was a small metal plate with his name engraved on it. Michael James Harper. When he touched his name, he heard a click. The lid of the box opened by itself. Inside, Michael found several strange items. There was a small silver compass that didn't point north but seemed to move randomly. A leather bracelet with 3 small blue stones set into it. A small vial of clear liquid. And at the bottom of the box, a folded paper and an old flip phone that looked like it was from the early 2000s. Michael opened the paper first. It was a letter from his grandfather. Asterisk, dear Michael, asterisk. Asterisk, if you're reading this, you've met the Guardian and learned about our family's duty. I know you're confused and scared. I felt the same when my father showed me the truth, asterisk. Asterisk, the items in this box will help you. The compass detects the presence of the shadows. That's what we call the creatures that come to our world. When you're near one, the needle will point to it, asterisk. Asterisk, the bracelet will protect your mind from their influence. Wear it always, asterisk. Asterisk, the vial contains a liquid that will reveal their true form if sprayed on them. Be careful. Once they know you can see them, they will try to kill you, asterisk. Asterisk, the phone has only one number in it. When you're ready for training, call it. My friend will answer. Trust him. He taught me everything I know, asterisk. Asterisk, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this while I was alive. The shadows watch us closely. They've been trying to find the Guardian's door for centuries, asterisk. Asterisk, you were chosen because you're stronger than I was. The Guardian sees something special in you. Trust your new abilities as they develop, asterisk. Asterisk, I love you, grandson. You can do this, asterisk. Asterisk, Harold, asterisk. Michael put down the letter and picked up the phone. It was old, but when he pressed the power button, it turned on. There was one contact listed simply as T. He put the phone in his pocket. He wasn't ready to call yet. He needed time to think. Michael put on the bracelet. As soon as the leather touched his skin, he felt a wave of calmness wash over him. His racing thoughts settled. The panic he had been feeling faded. He placed the compass and vial back in the box and closed it. Then he picked up his grandfather's book and tucked it under his arm. It was time to go home. As Michael climbed the stone steps back to the surface, his mind was clearer than it had been since finding his grandfather's letter. He now understood why Harold Harper had faked his death. The old man wasn't dead at all. He had moved on to another mission, somewhere else, fighting the shadows. At the top of the stairs, Michael pushed open the metal door and climbed out of the hole he had dug. The night was still dark, but he could see better now, as if his eyes had changed. The trees and gravestones stood out sharply against the night sky. He filled in the hole and replaced the grass as best he could. No one could know about the door under his grandfather's grave. As Michael walked back to his car, he felt eyes watching him from the darkness. He touched the compass in his pocket. The needle was spinning wildly. He wasn't alone in the cemetery. Something was watching him. And now, it knew that he could see it. Michael froze between 2 large gravestones. His hand gripped the compass in his pocket tightly. The needle was spinning faster now, which according to his new knowledge meant that multiple shadows were nearby. Stay calm, he whispered to himself. Remember what Grandpa wrote. He slowly pulled out the compass and watched the needle. After a moment, it stopped spinning and pointed firmly to his right, toward a cluster of old oak trees at the edge of the cemetery. Michael narrowed his eyes, focusing on the darkness between the trees. At first, he saw nothing. Then he noticed something strange, a patch of darkness that seemed deeper than the rest. It moved slightly, like smoke drifting in wind, but there was no wind tonight. He reached into the box and pulled out the small vial. His grandfather's letter said it would reveal the shadow's true form. Did he really want to see that? Maybe he should just run to his car. But running wouldn't solve anything. If the shadows knew who he was now, they would follow him home. Better to face them here, in the open, where he had space to move. Michael uncapped the vial and sprayed a tiny amount of the liquid into the air in front of him. It hung there for a second, like a mist, then drifted toward the trees. What happened next made his blood turn cold. As the mist touched the patch of darkness, it revealed something that shouldn't exist in our world. The creature was tall and thin, with limbs that bent in too many places. Its skin was black as coal, but seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Worst of all was its face, or rather, the place where a face should be. Instead, there was only a swirling vortex of darkness. The shadow saw that Michael could see it now. It made a sound like wind rushing through a narrow cave and stepped out from the trees. Michael stumbled backward. His mind was filled with terror, but also with knowledge that hadn't been there before. He knew that these creatures fed on fear. They grew stronger when humans were afraid. "I am Michael Harper," he said, his voice shaking at first but growing stronger. "Grandson of Harold Harper, I know what you are." The shadow stopped moving. It tilted what would be its head if it were human. Then Michael heard a voice in his mind, different from the Guardian's voice. This one was cold and scratchy, like nails on a chalkboard. Asterisk knew Harper. Young, weak, easy to break asterisk. Michael's hand went to the bracelet on his wrist. He felt its power flowing into him, protecting his thoughts from the creature's influence. "I'm not as weak as you think," he said. The shadow moved closer, testing him. But now Michael noticed something else. 2 more shadows emerging from behind gravestones to his left and right. They were trying to surround him. Michael remembered something from the flashes of knowledge the Guardian had given him. The shadows couldn't stand certain frequencies of light. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his modern smartphone. He turned on the flashlight and quickly changed the settings in a way he somehow now knew how to do. When he pointed the modified light at the nearest shadow, it made that awful rushing sound again and backed away. Asterisk others coming. Asterisk, the voice scratched in his mind. Asterisk many others. You cannot fight us all, Harper child asterisk. Michael knew it was right. He wasn't ready to fight multiple shadows. He needed training first. He kept the light pointed at the creatures as he backed toward his car. They followed at a distance, just outside the range of his light. When he reached his car, Michael quickly got in and locked the doors. The shadows gathered around the vehicle, their non-faces pressed against the windows. The compass needle was spinning wildly again. Michael started the engine. As he drove away, he could see the shadows in his rearview mirror, standing in the middle of the road, watching him leave. He reached for the old flip phone his grandfather had left him. It was time to call the mysterious T. He needed help, and he needed it now. As the cemetery disappeared behind him, Michael realized his normal life was over. From now on, he was a Harper in more than just name. He was a Guardian's chosen one, a protector against things that shouldn't exist. And the shadows knew exactly who he was. Michael drove through the dark streets with his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight that his knuckles turned white. Every few seconds, he checked his rearview mirror to see if the shadows were following him. The street seemed empty, but he knew better now. The shadows could hide anywhere darkness touched. When he was about 5 miles from the cemetery, he pulled into an empty gas station parking lot. His hands were shaking as he took out the old flip phone. For a moment, he just stared at it. Calling this number would change everything forever. But what choice did he have? Michael flipped open the phone and pressed the only number saved in it. It rang 3 times before someone answered. "Harold?" A deep voice spoke. The man sounded old but strong. "No," Michael said. "This is Michael Harper. Harold was my grandfather. He left me this phone. Told me to call you when I was ready for training." There was a long silence. Then the man sighed. So Harold has passed the responsibility to you. I was afraid of this. Where are you now, Michael? At the Shell station on Oakwood Drive. I just came from the cemetery. I found the door under his grave. I saw the Guardian, and then I saw them. The shadows. 3 of them. They followed me at the cemetery. Listen carefully, the man said, his voice now urgent. They will track you to your home. You cannot go back there tonight. Drive to 1427 Pine Street. It's an old bookstore called Forgotten Tales. The sign says it's closed, but the back door will be open. Go inside and wait for me. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Who are you? Michael asked. My name is Thomas Blackwood. I was your grandfather's teacher, as I will now be yours. Hurry, Michael. The shadows move quickly at night. The call ended. Michael stared at the phone for a moment, then put it away and started his car. He typed the address into his phone's GPS and started driving. 20 minutes later, he found the bookstore on a quiet street downtown. It looked old and abandoned. A sign in the window said, "Closed for renovation," but the dust on it suggested it had been there for years. Michael parked his car a block away and walked back, staying under streetlights as much as possible. He went around to the back of the building where a narrow alley led to a metal door. Just as Thomas had said, it was unlocked. Inside, the bookstore was dark except for a small lamp on a desk near the back. Bookshelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling. The air smelled of old paper and leather. Michael closed the door behind him and locked it. He walked to the desk where the lamp was burning and noticed a note next to it. Asterisk, wait here. Touch nothing. Tasterisk. Michael sat in the chair by the desk. Now that he had stopped moving, the events of the night crashed down on him. He had dug up his grandfather's grave, discovered he wasn't human, met an alien guardian, seen monsters, and learned that his family had been fighting them for generations. He put his head in his hands. What had his life become? The compass in his pocket suddenly grew warm. Michael pulled it out and saw the needle pointing directly at the front door of the bookstore. His heart raced. They had found him. Michael stood up, looking around for anything he could use as a weapon. On the desk was a letter opener shaped like a small sword. He grabbed it, knowing it probably wouldn't help much against a shadow. A scratching sound came from the front door. It sounded like claws on glass. Then Michael heard that rushing wind sound again, the noise the shadows made when they communicated. The front window darkened as something pressed against it from outside. Not one shadow, but what looked like dozens, their swirling non-faces melding together into a wall of living darkness. Asterisk, Harper child. Asterisk, the scratchy voice came into his mind, stronger now with so many of them together. Asterisk, no escape. No teacher will save you. Give us the location of the Guardian's door, and we will make your death quick. Asterisk. Michael backed up against the bookshelves. His hand clutched the letter opener. The bracelet on his wrist glowed faintly, trying to protect his mind from their influence. The front door handle began to turn slowly. Michael Harper, who just yesterday had been a normal young man working at a hardware store, prepared to fight for his life against creatures from beyond our world. The door handle turned completely, but before it could open, a blinding white light filled the bookstore. Michael covered his eyes with his arm. He'd heard the shadows outside make that terrible rushing sound, but louder now, almost like screams. When the light faded enough for Michael to see, a tall, older man stood in the middle of the room. He wore a long dark coat and had white hair cut short. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and clear. In his right hand, he held what looked like an old silver pocket watch that glowed with the same white light, though dimmer now. Right on time, the man said, looking at Michael, "I'm Thomas Blackwood." Michael lowered the letter opener. The shadows are running away, Thomas said. This light is painful to them. They won't come back tonight. They'll return tomorrow with more numbers. Thomas walked to the window and looked out. The darkness that had covered it was gone. He closed the curtains and turned back to Michael. "You look like Harold when he was young," Thomas said. "He was a good man. One of the best harpers I've trained." "You said you were his teacher. How old are you?" Michael asked. Thomas smiled slightly. "Older than I look. I've been fighting the shadows since before your great-grandfather was born. The Guardian chose my family long before the Harpers." Michael sat down, feeling overwhelmed again. "I don't understand any of this. Why did my grandfather fake his death? Where is he now? And what do these shadows want? Thomas put the glowing pocket watch in his coat and sat across from Michael. Harold didn't fake his death. He'd ascended. What does that mean? When a Guardian's chosen one reaches a certain level of power and wisdom, they can join with the Guardian's kind. They become something more than human, able to fight the shadows on a different level. Harold reached that point 3 weeks ago. Michael thought about the strange dreams he'd had just before his grandfather's death. Dreams of his grandfather surrounded by light, smiling and saying goodbye. So he's not dead, but he's not here either, Michael said slowly. Exactly. And now you must take his place as Earth's protector. But why me? Why our family? Thomas leaned forward. The Harpers have always been special. Your bloodline can sense things others can't. The Guardian recognized this quality in William Harper all those years ago. It's grown stronger with each generation. In you, it's stronger than it's ever been. And the shadows? What do they want? Thomas's face grew grim. They feed on life energy. Not just human life, all life. They want to drain this world dry. They've done it to other planets before. But each time, the Guardians find a family to help fight them. He stood up and walked to one of the bookshelves. He pulled out a large book and brought it to the desk. This is the complete history of our fight. Every family chosen by the Guardians across time. The Harpers are just one of many, but one of the most important. Thomas opened the book to show Michael ancient drawings of people fighting shadow creatures. Some of the people had glowing hands or eyes, using powers against the darkness. Your grandfather left you more than just a compass and vial, Thomas said. He left you his power. It's in your blood, waiting to be awakened. I can teach you how to use it, just as I taught him. Michael touched the bracelet on his wrist. The shadows are coming back tomorrow? Yes, with more numbers. They want to find the Guardian's door. If they do, they could destroy the connection between the Guardian and Earth. We would be defenseless. Michael stood up, feeling something new inside him, a sense of purpose and determination. The fear was still there, but it was smaller now. Then we better start training tonight, he said. Thomas smiled, a look of pride on his face. Harold was right about you. You are ready. He picked up the glowing pocket watch again and held it up to Michael. Touch it, he said. Let's wake up what's inside you. Michael reached out and placed his hand on the watch. Immediately, blue light spread from the watch up his arm. It didn't hurt. It felt warm and familiar, like coming home after a long journey. As the light covered his body, Michael Harper began his new life, not as a hardware store employee, but as the newest in a long line of protectors, chosen by beings from beyond the stars to keep Earth safe from the shadows. The journey that had begun at his grandfather's grave was just the first step on a path that would take him places he could never have imagined.